Everybody, it's Simon Rosenberg with Hopium Chronicles. We're here for our eighth candidate interview in our Winning the House series. This has been a lot of fun. We've had really spectacular candidates, very encouraging, not just in terms of the quality of the people that are running this cycle, very highly motivated, but also just the sense of uplift that we've gotten in the last few weeks in this sort of regeneration. And so with me today is Josh Riley, who's running in New York. I am a New Yorker by birth, and so these New York races really matter to me. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Listen, I'm so grateful for you taking the time. We're in crunch time now in these elections, right? Every moment counts. Give us an update on the race. For the people that don't know, talk a little bit about the district, a little bit of background on you, how
Yeah.
things are going. Just let us know how things are going.
Well, first of all, I want to say the most important thing I want to say today, and I just want to start off with it, is just thank you to everything you're doing, everybody who's watching, all of your support for our campaign. Just please know I don't take any of it for granted. It means the world to me, both as a candidate running in one of the most competitive districts in the whole country, but also as a dad to a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. I'm here in large part fighting for their future. And so for all of you to be supporting campaigns like mine, it means the world to me from the bottom of my heart. So I want to say that first and foremost. So our district, I'll tell you a little bit about my district and tell you a little bit about my background. So our district is one of the most competitive in the country. Excuse me. One of the rating analysts that's out there actually just rated us the fourth most competitive race in the whole country. And as you know, we need to get 4 seats back to take back the House. We have 11 counties across upstate New York, from Ithaca, where I'm talking to you from, Endicott, Binghamton, and Johnson City, the Triple Cities in the southern tier, is the biggest population center in the district. We go down into the Delaware River Basin, which is Sullivan County, up into the Catskills and Oneonta, and up to the Albany region, the Upper Hudson Valley, Columbia County, Rensselaer. So it's a huge 11-county district. I think it's actually bigger than the state of Massachusetts. And what's fascinating about it is that it's a district that Trump carried by 2 points in 2016. Joe Biden carried it by 4.4 points in 2020, which interestingly is the same margin that he won the popular vote by nationally. And I think it's fair to say that what's happening in our national politics is fairly reflected in this district. In 2022, it was, we can talk about it, it was a tough year in New York and California for House races. The red wave that didn't materialize across a lot of the country did materialize here. Lee Zeldin was the Republican nominee for governor, and he carried this district by 7 points against Kathy Hochul. I was the Democratic nominee for Congress in that cycle, which posed a host of challenges between redistricting and late primaries, and we came within just a point and a half of winning the seat. So we outran the top of the ticket by 5.5 points. That's a margin, if you're counting at home, 4,495 votes. And so every day that I'm out talking to voters who either didn't vote in 2022 or maybe voted the other way in 2022, anytime I can get those folks to say, you know, Josh, I'm going to support you this time around, I'm ticking down the numbers in my mind. And so all the resources that folks are providing really help us get that outreach to voters and are going to help us get across the finish line.
And so how is this cycle? I mean, listen, we've had so much happen right in the last few weeks. I mean, give us give us an update on how it feels now, right? Because it really is a new election. I mean, I just posted today in Hopium, I mean, that the election, at least at the national level, Harris is probably now 3 to 4, 5 points ahead of where Biden was 3 weeks ago in the national polling. I mean, she's been consistently up all this week. We've never been consistently up in polling this entire year. The battleground states themselves also have seen dramatic improvement. We know there's huge increase in enthusiasm and money. I mean, how does it feel today, given now we're a couple of weeks into the Harris candidacy?
Yeah, I'm so excited about the campaign operation we've been building, the campaign that we're running. I'll tell you, it shows in at least two really important ways. Our finance program, you have to have the resources to communicate, particularly in a district like this, which covers 5 different media markets. So for me to communicate with my voters on television, I need to buy time on 5 different stations. And then our field program. On finance, we came into this last quarter in large part to the help of a lot of folks who are listening today with $4 million cash in the bank. That gave us a $1.7 million cash on hand advantage over my opponent, who had 2.3 million. That's the biggest cash on hand advantage of any challenger running against an incumbent in the entire country. I'm really proud of that, not just because of all the effort and the work that it's taken to get there, but the way we have done it. My opponent has taken hundreds of thousands of dollars from corporate PACs, whether it's the utility monopolies, whether it's the big oil companies, the big ag monopolies that are crushing our small farmers and jacking up prices at the grocery store. They're funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars into his campaign. I don't take any corporate PAC money. Never have, never will. We've got to overturn Citizens United. We've got to clean up the mess that is campaign finance. And over 90% of the contributions to our campaign are $100 or less. And with that grassroots operation, we're still outraising him. So I think that is a demonstration of the enthusiasm and the support for our campaign. On the field side of things, one of the things that's been the most fun for me, especially over the last couple of weeks, is opening our field offices across this district. We've opened offices now in Monticello and Hudson, Binghamton, Ithaca. We're going to open an office next week in Norwich. I'm hoping to bring one online in Greenbush and another in Oneonta soon. And we're drawing tons of people who are coming out to volunteer because they know New York State might not be the place that decides it's not going to be the place that decides the presidency. It's not going to be the place that decides the Senate, but in districts like this, it's going to determine the House and therefore the future of the country we're living in. So it's really, really exciting to see all the enthusiasm in our campaign.
Congratulations on your fundraising. I mean, for a challenger to be that far ahead, almost double in terms of cash on hand, what your opponent has go at this point is just an amazing achievement, and you should be really proud of you and the whole team. I mean, you've clearly worked your butt off to get that done, and so congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
What are
Thank you.
the issues do you today that are really, when you go door to door, you make your calls, your team is out fanning out? I mean, what's on people's minds right now? What do you think is resonating the most, and what's been most effective for you? I mean, what do you think is not just what people are talking about, but what do you feel when you talk to folks, like the energy and the passion from them that's really driving their vote at this point?
Yeah, I think there's two things that are really defining our race. The first is choice. I'm running against a 30-year career politician who has a long and very clear track record of being anti-choice. When he was in state and local politics, he voted against the laws that would have codified Roe v. Wade here in New York State. And then during the last election campaign, this was an open seat. He didn't have a congressional voting record yet. And after Roe v. Wade was overturned, he ran around and told everybody, hey guys, hey, I promise I won't vote for any anti-abortion legislation. In fact, there's a headline in the Daily Freeman that says, Mark Molinaro pledges not to support anti-abortion legislation. And then sure enough, one of the first things he did when he got to Congress was he voted for a bunch of anti-abortion legislation. He blocked the federal bill that would have put Roe v. Wade back into law. He voted to make it harder for service members and veterans to get access to the abortion services they need. These are women who are literally putting their lives on the line to defend our freedom. And he's in Congress voting to take theirs away. It's completely unacceptable. I'm pro-choice. Send me to Congress. I'm going to sponsor the Women's Health Protection Act on day one. It's a stark contrast with my opponent and something that a lot of voters appreciate. I'll never forget a conversation I had in I spend as much time as I can in our reddest communities, places where Democrats historically maybe don't show up. I think it's really important for me to be there. One of the conversations I had with somebody in Shenango County last summer or the summer before, I think it was, they said, Josh, they're older couple, probably in their mid 70s or so. Said, Josh, we're Republicans. We've never voted for a Democrat before in our lives, but we're going to vote for you because we have granddaughters. And this was after Roe v. Wade was overturned. And so that is a major issue. The other that I'll tell you just quickly, our campaign finance system is completely broken. It's just an absolute cesspool. It's corrupt as hell. And I'm running to change that. And sometimes people say, Josh, that's too abstract, and you have to talk about the issues that matter for people's conversations at the kitchen table. And what I say is, the fact that our campaign finance system is so broken and so corrupt has an effect on every single conversation you're having at the kitchen table, whether it's the fact that my opponent has taken tens of thousands of dollars from utility monopolies and then helped them jack up the utility prices, whether it's the fact that oil-backed dark money poured millions of dollars into these races in New York to keep pro-environmental candidates like me out of Congress. The corruption runs deep. And so that's why I take so much pride in not taking corporate PAC money, because my vote's not for sale. And people on both sides of the aisle appreciate that because they want somebody who's going to work for us and not for the special interests.
I do think that you're smart about, I mean, there's no question that independent voters, young people, people who are less interested in politics, one of the things that's driving them away from politics is this perception that the system is rigged and it's corrupt. And it's why I was proud of the president. Just his whole reform agenda for the Supreme Court was one step he needed to take to start talking about the need for us to clean up Washington. And you know, the vice president has endorsed some very aggressive campaign finance reform initiatives in her initial in her first 2 weeks. And I think we need to. I think this issue of having an anti-corruption agenda is something that we're still not where we need to be. I think there's opportunity here, you know, at the convention and in the coming weeks to make this more central to us, because it is a barrier for many people to take this all seriously and to have any admiration or respect for their political leaders. And so I agree with you that I think that I don't know that we've found exactly the right way to talk about this yet as a party, but you're on to something I think deeply important that I think is keeping a lot of Americans further away from their country and their government and their political leaders than they should be, right?
I couldn't agree more. In fact, one of the things, probably the biggest race update that I should have shared at the top and didn't, we actually went on TV with our first set of ads 2.5 weeks ago. That is thanks to the grassroots support. When I'm talking about going to the PO box and having a check for $5 from somebody who has a handwritten note that says, Josh, go get them, or the contributions that come in online on our website, we've been able to use that to go up on TV with our first set of ads. And in that first set of ads, what I talk about is growing up in a working class community, a blue collar manufacturing town that was sold out by bad trade deals. When plants closed, jobs were shipped overseas. The opioid epidemic ripped through and killed some of my neighbors and high school classmates. The child poverty rate in the city of Binghamton, which is our biggest city, is now approaching 50%. It's a consequence of economic opportunities being taken out of a community. But at the same time, what we saw was Wall Street profits were soaring. And it was the worst we did in terms of job losses, the better they did, because they were able to exploit overseas labor. And so that taught me at a very young age, and it's very much ingrained in my politics and my view of the world, that our economic system and our political system, the deck really has been stacked in favor of politicians and the special interests, and it's been stacked against communities like the one I grew up in. And so our first ad, I make a pledge, I make a promise that I will never take any corporate PAC money. I support term limits. And when I talk to folks in our reddest or red communities, our bluest or blue communities from all walks of life, I always ask, what is the thing that's keeping you up at night? What is it that you and your family are talking about at the kitchen table? And I can guarantee you, whatever the answer to that question is, you can draw a direct line from that challenge to the corrupting influence of corporate PAC money in our politics. And so I can't wait to get to Washington and jump on the amendment to overturn Citizens United, work on some legislation to get the corporate PAC money out of our politics and start returning power to people instead of allowing it to continue to be concentrated with the powerful.
Josh, tell us a little bit about you. I mean,
Yeah.
how did you, I often joke with our candidates, how did you go crazy and decide to
Yeah.
run for Congress? Because this is always more of a bear than people really understand when they first, you know, get into it. But tell us a little bit about your background and what we need to know about you too.
Yeah, it's hard work. It's also at this moment in our country's history, probably the most important work we can be doing. My wife would say I've probably been crazy for as long as she's known me. So I mentioned a little bit. I have my story is the story of so many folks across upstate New York, so many families across upstate New York. My family came here over 100 years ago. fifth generation Broome County native. I was actually, my grandpa just turned 90, and I was going back into our family tree and found that there's actually two generations in Sullivan County. So seven generations in upstate New York. And they came here like so many folks of their generation to find work, pursue the American dream, try to find a place in the middle class. We had the world's biggest shoe company, Endicott Johnson, in my hometown. It literally built the town. The house that I grew up in is called an EJ house. It was built by the shoe factory, and they would you could buy a house with $1 down and no interest mortgage, and then walk to the plants. And my folks were tanners in the shoe factory for generations. IBM was founded in my hometown, which is a huge point of pride for us. My generations of my family, my grandparents worked in the IBM plants, and dad was a maintenance worker in the waste treatment plant. Really good blue collar jobs where you could earn a place in the middle class without a college degree. The only credential was you had to have a really good work ethic to do it, and the folks I grew up with did. As I was growing up, though, I saw what I told you, it was around the time of WTO and around the time of NAFTA and a lot of bad trade deals and bad economic policies. We lost about 20,000 manufacturing jobs in the region. And what felt like overnight, folks started getting pink slips instead of paychecks. And that's when the child poverty rate increased and addiction issues really took hold. So I didn't know any lawyers when I was growing up, but I worked really, really hard to become one because I knew that that would be a way to make a difference in communities like mine that have been looked down on and sold out and ripped off for a long time. So out of law school, I partnered with the American Academy of Pediatrics on a civil rights lawsuit representing kids who were living in poverty and having difficulty getting access to the healthcare services they needed. My typical client was a little kid where mom and dad was working 2, 3 minimum wage jobs. And for them to get in to see the doctors they needed, they had to wait weeks or months, and they had to travel very long distances, lose a day's wages to do it. And meanwhile, in the next zip code over, you'd have families who were doing really well and could see a doctor basically the same day down the street. And so I argued in federal court then. I believe in my heart and soul today. I'll take the case to Congress that healthcare should be a civil right in this country. I spent a few years as counsel on the United States Senate Judiciary Committee. Really proud of the work I did there as the lead counsel on some legislation to bring Democrats and Republicans together to fight the opioid epidemic. And then I was an attorney in private legal practice for a number of years. I did a lot of work in sort of a private attorney general type of role. So I took on some big health insurance companies and hospitals that were monopolizing the market and ripping off small businesses. I represented workers under the Fair Labor Standards Act. I challenged Donald Trump's Muslim ban in the United States Supreme Court. I found that to be not just unconstitutional, but un-American, that we would have religious litmus tests in this country. Incidentally, that's something that my opponent is now attacking me on, which will give you a sense of how strong of a position our campaign is in. And ran my first race and came up just a hair short in 2022. So we're going to finish the job here this year.
That's great. And listen, I mean, you're doing an amazing job. And, I grew up not too far away from you. I grew up in Wilton, Connecticut, Fairfield County. Definitely a little bit different economically, but I do have family in Rhinebeck, and I have my aunt lived in near Hudson for a long time. She passed away recently. And so there are scattered parts of our family that have lived either near or in the district. So I know that area. I mean, I've spent time in that, and my mother's family had one of her branches of her tree were in Hudson for a long
Yeah.
time, and I'm forgetting now all this stuff. It's a long time
Yeah.
ago, but we were all I was born in the city, and we all scattered to New Jersey and Long Island and Connecticut and upstate New York. I mean, it's all four of my grandparents were New Yorkers, and three of them were immigrants, and including we had an O'Reilly.
Good.
My mother's maiden name, my mother's was O'Reilly, and so we had not O'Reilly, but we had an O'Reilly, and
There you go.
so
Yeah.
yes, in the background. Anyway, listen, congratulations on your progress.
Thank you.
Fingers crossed. I mean, I think that we're closing strong as Democrats. I think Trump is unraveling a little bit, and sort of the thinness and the ugliness of his offering is becoming more apparent. I feel like he's a guy who was standing in the woods and his ugliness was being obscured by Biden's struggle. And when Biden stepped down and Kamala came forward, he's now standing in an empty field, and it's all there for everybody to see. And and I think I'm very optimistic. I mean, your colleagues that I've been interviewing the last few weeks are really optimistic about their ability to close strong. They feel like they've got wind at their back now instead of fighting against wind in their face. And good luck, man. You seem like a
Thank
great
you.
candidate, and you're working your butt off. And we're really glad to be supporting you in this effort.
Yeah, we're all in it together. It's somebody said to me something to the effect that, Josh, isn't this really hard? There's a huge amount of pressure, especially on this race, which is really could be seat 218. And my thought on it is we're all in it together. And I'm enjoying so much my time on the campaign trail, and just, again, appreciate from the bottom of my heart all the help that folks are providing. So thank you. Thank you. Come visit us. Upstate New York's the most beautiful place in the world in the fall. Come
It
visit
is.
tours, and thank you so much.
And listen, thanks everybody. Thanks for helping Josh. Thanks for helping all of our candidates. We still have a lot of work to do. We got to put our heads down, finish strong here. And now we're not playing to catch up, but we're playing to win. And that feels a little bit different. And when you're ahead in an election like this, and I think we are, is when you have to do the most work, because now we're playing to win this thing. And it feels that way. And I think all of you have been working your butts off, but our most important work is ahead of us. Thanks, everybody. Good luck,
Thank
Josh.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.